The narrative commenced unexpectedly for me. My name is Zephyr. I am 25 years old, and I have just returned home after an extended period of living and working abroad. I departed at the age of 22 to pursue a career in a distant location. And during those 3 years, I maintained contact with my family solely through sporadic phone calls. However, this time I resolved to return to my hometown to visit my family after such a prolonged absence. Upon entering the familiar house, a wave of both familiarity and strangeness enveloped me. My parents were profoundly emotional upon my return, and our entire family spent the first evening reminiscing about cherished memories, filled with laughter and the delectable dishes my mother prepared, which I had missed dearly. Yet, what astonished me the most was Maris, my younger sister. The last time I encountered Maris, she was a little charming yet timid girl who preferred to conceal herself behind me in the presence of strangers. However, when Maris emerged from the room to welcome me, I could not believe my eyes. She had transformed into a tall, self-assured lady with her long hair flowing freely. Her eyes shimmered, and her grin was modest yet inviting. It was an unusual sensation, akin to encountering someone entirely new yet still recognizable. "Zephyr, it has been a considerable time since I last saw you," Maris remarked with a smile, her voice now imbued with an unexpected maturity. I embraced her tightly, exclaiming, "When did you grow so much? I hardly recognized you." To which Maris merely chuckled. Her cheeks flushed, yet she remained silent. Throughout the evening, I could not cease observing her every movement. Maris evoked old memories, but I also recognized her significant transformation. There was an enigmatic quality to her speech and laughter that left me perplexed, a blend of familiarity and something elusive. As night fell, I retreated to my room to rest after the lengthy flight. My mother had meticulously preserved my old room, every detail evoking nostalgia. Fatigued, I opted for a shower before bed. The warm water seemed to wash away the weariness of my journey, imparting a sense of relief and relaxation. Afterward, I donned a loose t-shirt. I reclined on the antiquated bed, intending to nap. However, upon extinguishing the lights, the ensuing darkness and silence prompted my thoughts to wander to memories of my family, particularly Maris, whose presence frequently occupied my mind. I found myself reflecting on her transformation and the gentle yet piercing gaze she had directed towards me. I endeavored to dismiss such ideas, convincing myself that it was only an unusual sensation to reunite with my sister after many years of separation. But the more I attempted to forget, the more vivid her picture became in my memory. I recalled the manner in which Maris smiled when she was bashful and the way she inclined her head as I listened to her parents converse. Every gesture and subtle expression appeared to be etched in my memory. While lying on the bed, I recognized my struggle with my emotions. Ultimately, I relinquished them, retaining only a gentle sensation intertwined with a hint of embarrassment and inner turmoil. In the darkness, I became aware of the profound silence surrounding me, so profound that I could discern my own breathing. Yet my mind remained unsettled. I was unable to cease contemplating Maris and the extent of her transformation over the last 3 years, which made me feel as though I was encountering an entirely different individual. Recollections of our childhood frequently resurfaced. She would trail behind me, calling out, "Brother Zephyr, wait for me." I recalled the moments when she sought refuge behind me in fear and the instances when she exuberantly leaped with joy upon receiving small gifts. However, Maris was no longer the little girl she once was. Her smile and the glimmer in her eyes exuded a confidence and allure that were unfamiliar to me. I sighed softly, closing my eyes in an attempt to drift into slumber. But a gentle knock on the door prompted me to open my eyes. "Brother Zephyr, are you still awake?" Maris spoke, softly from outside the door. I sat up, somewhat astonished that you were awake. "What is occurring?" Maris opened the door and entered, still clad in the modest nightgown that highlighted her slender body. She smiled sheepishly and sat on the edge, stating, "I can't sleep," her hands quivering. Her hands were clutched together, and her gaze averted mine, suggesting she was preoccupied with thoughts. I only want to converse for a while, as it has been some time since our last encounter. I nodded, attempting to maintain a casual tone. Indeed, it has been some while. What of it? Did you intend to inform me that we have commenced? Initially, we engaged in discussions regarding uncomplicated narratives about family, work, and our respective lives. Maris recounted her days spent at home with her parents, her academic pursuits, and the minor pleasures she had encountered. However, as our conversation progressed, I discerned that her gaze occasionally appeared distant, suggesting the presence of unarticulated thoughts. Abruptly, she halted, her hands clenched tightly. Do you believe that prolonged separation between two individuals can lead to such significant changes that they may no longer comprehend one another as they once did? Her inquiry prompted me to reflect. I gazed into her eyes, attempting to discern her thoughts. I believe so, yet if a connection persists, their relationship may revert to its former state. I responded. Maris offered a faint smile, though it lacked complete joy. I am optimistic. We sat in the subdued light. The atmosphere abruptly altered. I sensed her proximity, the warmth of her gentle breathing nearby. Yet this intimacy was accompanied with an inexplicable uneasiness that I could not articulate to Maris. I inquired gently, attempting to maintain a composed tone. She remained silent. She immediately shook her head slightly and said, "Nothing, dear. I suppose I'm merely contemplating. Excessively." She then rose and grinned at me once again. "I am returning to my room and will no longer disturb you. Good night, brother," I said. "Good night, Maris." However, my thoughts remained inundated with unresolved inquiries as she exited and shut the door. I lingered momentarily, gazing into the obscurity before me, as an unsettling yet familiar sensation surged within my heart, suggesting a shift in our relationship, which I hesitated to confront. I reclined on the bed but was unable to sleep. My thoughts incessantly returned to Maris's visage, her half-closed eyes, and her soft voice as she departed. There was something peculiar in her gaze, as if she wished to convey something but refrained. Time progressed slowly, and the silence intensified the discomfort in my heart. Ultimately, unable to endure the suffocating atmosphere, I resolved to go to the kitchen for a drink, hoping to alleviate my mood. As I descended the stairs, the dim light from the living room caused me to pause. I peered through the ajar door. I observed Maris seated on the sofa, her legs curled up, her arms embracing a cushion, her gaze concentrated on the television screen, yet her thoughts evidently elsewhere. I entered quietly to avoid startling her. "Are you still awake?" I inquired, prompting Maris to flinch slightly. She then turned to face me, her expression tinged with embarrassment. Unable to sleep, I descended to this location to watch television for a while. She sat next to her, maintaining a respectful distance. "What is troubling you? You have appeared restless since my arrival." The other woman pursed her lips, her gaze directed at her clasped fists. After a brief pause, she shook her head. "It is inconsequential, dear. It is peculiar. Given the prolonged absence from home, I did not compel her. Yet the ambience between us remained oddly strained." I observed Maris, acknowledging the mature contours of her visage yet simultaneously perceiving an element of fragility, as if she concealed a secret she was unwilling or unable to disclose. I attempted to alleviate the atmosphere by stating that upon my return, I felt similarly disoriented. Her transformation was so profound that it seemed I was encountering an entirely different individual. Maris turned to face me, her eyes glinting with astonishment. "Is change beneficial or detrimental?" she inquired. "Brother," I grinned, attempting to maintain a cheerful tone. "That is commendable. You have matured significantly." The mature and very attractive Maris flushed at the compliment and swiftly averted her gaze, although she could not conceal the grin that briefly illuminated her lips. "Thank you," she mumbled. her voice so soft that I had to strain to hear it. A prolonged stillness was interrupted just by the faint hum of the television, after which Maris said, gently disrupting the stillness, "Mr. Zephyr, I have an inquiry that may seem peculiar." I arched an eyebrow at her request, assuring her that I would respond earnestly. Maris bit her lip, seemingly contemplating, then exhaled deeply. If two individuals were once intimately connected and one suddenly experienced a shift in feelings, that would be unjust. Her inquiry pierced the emotions I had endeavored to suppress since our reunion. I was uncertain how to respond, yet I sensed her gaze, yearning for some form of clarification. "I believe our emotions are never erroneous, Maris," I replied deliberately. "I am attempting to maintain a composed demeanor, but your actions in response to them are crucial. Do you comprehend my meaning?" Maris gave a little nod, but refrained from providing any commentary. She glanced back at the television screen, seemingly absorbed in her own thoughts, remaining silent thereafter. I did not compel her, yet I could not refute that my pulse was racing, each thump resonating in my chest. A portion of me desired to go and escape this uncomfortable scenario, while another part was unable to divert my gaze from her. Ultimately, I rose, attempting to maintain a composed tone. "Is that acceptable? You should retire for the night. Refrain from staying up too late. We still have plenty of time to converse tomorrow." Maris glanced at me and nodded subtly. "Good night, brother." "Good." As I departed the living room, I sensed that the tranquility between Maris and me was slowly being supplanted by an unspoken tension. I retreated to my room, closing the door softly, as if to preserve the house's silence. However, this silence only exacerbated my tumultuous thoughts. Maris's inquiry reverberated in my mind, spiraling endlessly. If two individuals were once intimately connected, yet one suddenly experiences a shift in feelings towards the other, is that an erroneous question? Her gaze conveyed an unspoken confession, instilling a sense of anxiety and unease within me. I could not deny that since encountering Maris again, I had experienced a tumult of emotions I was reluctant to acknowledge or contemplate. However, her question rendered those feelings inescapable. Lying on the bed with my eyes wide open, I stared at the ceiling, attempting to dispel the chaotic thoughts. Yet, Maris's image persisted in my mind, her smile, her eyes, the way she sat beside me on the sofa, exuding confusion yet brimming with anticipation. I tossed and turned for an extended period until the sensation became intolerable. I arose and stepped onto the balcony to inhale the fresh air. The streetlights cast shadows on the tranquil night, and the star-studded sky offered a semblance of peace, albeit insufficient to alleviate the turmoil within my heart. As I stood there, I perceived a faint sound emanating from the staircase. Turning, I beheld Maris, her gaze fixed on me with uncertainty. "I couldn't sleep," she murmured softly. As I approached, "I noticed your door ajar, leading me to assume you could be present as well." I nodded, attempting to maintain a casual demeanor. "I only stepped outside for some fresh air. Are you well, Maris Mara?" She stood beside me, her hands gently grasping the railing, her gaze directed towards the sky. "It's okay," she said, "but it feels peculiar that you're back. There are so many emotions I cannot comprehend." I listened in silence, uncertain of how to respond, as there was an element in her voice that rendered interruption impossible. Zephyr Maris continued, her tone soft yet slightly quavering. "Do you ever feel that those closest to you can also be the most perplexing?" The question pierced my innermost feelings, prompting me to turn and meet her gaze, as if she were searching for something within me. "Maris," I began, unsure of how to articulate my thoughts. "At times, our emotions do not align with our desires. What is significant is our response to them. Do you get my point?" Maris nodded, her gaze fixed on me, yet there was an unfamiliar intensity and tension that I struggled to articulate. She stood in close proximity, her gentle breath mingling with the air between us, diminishing the already tenuous distance. My heart raced, each beat resonating within my chest. Part of me yearned to retreat, yet another part was captivated by her presence. Maris. I uttered her name softly, my voice constricted by emotion, but before I could articulate further, she advanced, nearly eliminating the space between us. I sensed her warmth, delicacy, and resilience intertwined, yet at that moment, a jolt extricated me from my bewilderment. I stepped back, attempting to retain the scant rationale I had remaining. Maris, we cannot. Can we? I stated, my voice quavering, avoiding direct eye contact with her. You are my sister. This is inappropriate. She gazed at me, her eyes brimming with inscrutable feelings. Yet she remained silent, only nodding slightly before turning away and re-entering the house. Without uttering a word, I remained standing there. As I saw her silhouette fade, my heart was engulfed by uncertainty and perplexity. I retreated to my room and reclined on the bed. Although slumber eluded me, the tension prevented me from escaping the memories of closeness shared with Maris since my homecoming. Her shy smile upon our initial encounter, the significance of her inquiries, and her approach on the balcony all suggested an unacknowledged implication. The following morning, I awoke as the first rays of sunlight permeated the doorway. My body felt weighed down from a night of scant rest. Yet there was little time for contemplation. The aroma of brewing coffee from the kitchen signified the start of a fresh day. And as I came down the stairs, I saw Maris, as she stood by the essential oil maker preparing coffee. Maris, clad in a loose t-shirt and jeans, appeared both comfortable and gorgeous. Upon noticing me, she turned, offering a sweet grin, and I instantly perceived the tranquility in her greeting. "Good morning, brother," she murmured, her eyes shining, her voice attempting to maintain a casual tone. "I prepared coffee. Would you care for a cup?" "Affirmative. Thank you," I responded, attempting to conceal my admiration as I took a seat at the table, observing her delicately pour the coffee powder into the ring, her fingers executing a subtle gesture that I believed only I could perceive. We sat opposite each other in a tranquil atmosphere laden with unexpressed sentiments. I sensed her desire to articulate something, and I too yearned to disrupt the silence. However, each time I attempted to speak, I found myself at a loss for coherent words. Ultimately, it was Maris who broke the silence, addressing me as Mr. Zephyr. "I apologize if I caused you discomfort last night. It was not my intention to create any disturbance." I gazed at her in silence, perceiving the honesty in her eyes alongside the melancholy she sought to conceal. "It is acceptable, Maris." I was also at a loss for words. Everything was so unforeseen. She nodded and set down the cup. I perceived strength in her presence. Perhaps I am also perplexed about my own identity. I was uncertain how to react to her comments, which revealed an acknowledgement I was unprepared to confront. Yet I realized I could not evade it indefinitely. I could not allow her to feel alone in her individuality. "Maris, listen," I started, my voice subdued. "We are brothers. Time and change may render circumstances peculiar, but I am confident this will subside as long as we uphold mutual respect. Everything will ultimately resolve." "Maris." She gazed at me tenderly. Her eyes appeared to convey a message, yet she refrained from speaking. After a moment, she gave a little nod. "You are correct. Perhaps I am overthinking." Subsequent to breakfast, Maris avoided my presence throughout the day. She undertook the majority of the minor household tasks, ranging from cleaning to rearranging the living room. I refrained from approaching her, believing that we both required time to process our emotions. However, this distance exacerbated the tension, rendering me increasingly restless. When my parents announced their intention to visit a friend for the evening, the situation became more complex. Leaving only Maris and me in the house, I planned to retreat to my room early to circumvent any awkwardness. But then I heard a gentle knock on my door. "Maris," I called, opening the door to find her standing there, her slender face composed, engaged in a project. "Can you come out and talk to me for a moment?" she asked softly, almost pleadingly. I wanted to decline, but my eyes betrayed me. I agreed and exited. We went down to the living room, where a soft golden light bathed the room. Maris sat down on the sofa, and I sat a safe distance away from her. "I just wanted to explain," Mara said, her voice trembling. "I don't want you to think I'm a stranger or that I'm trying to do something wrong. I just can't control my emotions." My heart fluttered at those words. I wanted to interrupt her, but I didn't know what to say. Zephyr Maris continued, turning to look at me. "I recognize that my emotions are misguided, yet I am uncertain how to halt them." Her words pierced my heart like a knife, simultaneously illuminating a truth I had endeavored to repress. I yearned to console her, to assure her that all would be well. But how could I do so when I lacked certainty myself? Reflecting on my emotions, I observed her as she prepared to speak. Yet she rose and turned away, expressing regret for her thoughts. Apologizing, she swiftly exited, leaving me once more engulfed in conflicting feelings. I remained silent in the living room, the gentle yellow light failing to dispel the chill enveloping my heart. Maris's words, the emotions she unveiled, and my own sense of helplessness coalesced, akin to a cork poised to explode, prompting me to assign blame to myself. How did I allow circumstances to deteriorate to this extent? A part of me desired to exit the house to escape everything, avoiding her gaze and my own emotions. However, another part restrained me, preventing my departure. I did not wish to abandon her in this condition or allow her to feel isolated or rejected. Consequently, I rose and ascended the stairs slowly, stopping in front of a room door. The door was only ajar, and the light from the table lamp in her room shone into the hallway, dim but warm. I knocked, softly, my voice so low that only I could hear it. "Maris, may I come in?" There was no answer. I pushed the door open and found Maris sitting on the edge of the bed, her head bowed, her hands clasped in her lap. She didn't look up at me, but I knew she was aware of my presence. "Maris," I said, moving to sit next to her on the bed. "I don't know what to say to make you feel better, but I'm here, and I want you to know that you don't have to suffer alone." Maris turned to look at me, her eyes filled with tears, but no tears fell. "Zephyr, I know I'm wrong, but I can't stop this feeling. I've tried, but every time I see you, I just can't stop thinking about you." I inhaled deeply, attempting to compose myself, aware that no words could alleviate the turmoil within her or myself. Nevertheless, I felt compelled to act, to articulate something to prevent us from descending further into our overwhelming emotions. "Maris, you are my sister," I declared, my voice quivering, gradual yet consistent. "These emotions may stem from prolonged separation, rendering circumstances unfamiliar. However, it is crucial to recall our identities and the significance we hold in each other's lives." Maris remained silent, her gaze reflecting both anguish and a quest for hope. "You are correct, but I am uncertain how to relinquish this feeling. Zephyr, I yearn for a return to the time when I was merely your little sister and you were the esteemed big brother I have always admired." I placed my hand on her shoulder, a gentle yet reassuring gesture. "I desire that as well, Maris, and I believe that time will help you get through it. I will be here, helping you find what we once had. Brotherly love is closeness but not crossing the line that we both know cannot be crossed." Maris nodded, leaning her head lightly on my shoulder as if seeking some comfort in that moment. We sat like that for a long time, neither of us saying anything, just quietly letting the space around us blend into the silence we both needed to calm down. Then I stood up, giving her a gentle smile. "Tomorrow is a new day. I am going to sleep. Believe we will be fine." Maris smiled, a faintly melancholic smile accompanied by a hint of relief. "Good night, Mr. Zephyr." "Thank you." I exited her room, closed the door, and sensed that I had traversed a delicate yet essential boundary. Internally, turmoil persisted, Yet I recognized that I had made the correct decision to adhere to righteousness despite the challenging emotions. That night, I reclined in bed, feeling unburdened. After days of struggle, I recognized that the forthcoming journey would be arduous. However, we had commenced the initial steps toward healing for both her and myself. From this experience, I gleaned a significant lesson. Emotions are an inherent aspect of humanity, yet our approach to confronting and managing them is paramount. At times, we may become ensnared in conflicting emotions, particularly when unforeseen changes disrupt established perceptions. Nevertheless, it is crucial to pause, assess the situation with clarity, and select the appropriate course of action. As I have learned, love transcends mere emotion. It embodies a responsibility towards oneself and others. Upholding essential boundaries, even amidst challenges, is crucial for nurturing the respect and relationships you value. At times, you may encounter intense and complex emotions, potentially leading to confusion regarding yourself and your interpersonal connections. In such instances, bear in mind that while emotions are inherent, actions ought to be informed by wisdom and moral principles. Allocate time to comprehend your feelings rather than hastily judging or acting upon them. Honor significant boundaries within relationships, as they serve as the cornerstone for sustaining attachment and trust. If you find yourself adrift, seek guidance from trusted family members, friends, or heed your emotions, yet always prioritize self-control, as it safeguards you from errors and sustains the invaluable relationships you hold dear. My narrative concludes with indelible lessons and a sense of relief that all matters have been appropriately addressed. Life persists, and I am confident that, with sincerity and respect, we will uphold this sacred familial bond. Thank you for engaging with our story. Should you find it intriguing and significant, don't forget to leave a like to support you in the next video. Wish everyone always happiness and health.